One disclaimer before I give you a little bit of background information. You're going to see me hold this podium. It's not my normal way of talking, but I'm experiencing a little vertigo. I did not have anything to drink at lunch. I just am a little lopsided, so you'll see me grab on here. It will be more comfortable for you than watching me fall, and then everybody's uncomfortable about that. I understand. We don't want that. Come on in. Come on. You're not late. Well, you are, but no kidding. You're welcome. You're right on time. Welcome, welcome. So I'm Sister Lisa Laguna. I live in the Bay Area of California, near San Jose, by obedience. That's one of those vows that we take as daughters of charity, right? I'm from Southern California. Loud and proud Dodger fan. Anybody? Anyway, yeah, I'm from a suburb of Los Angeles, and I've been a daughter of charity for 15 years. I've entered over 17 years ago, but I've had this little letters DC behind my name for 15 years. And I'm an educator by training, and I've spent the last 9 years working in vocation ministry. That's kind of short for saying like non-recruiter, right? But we're not nuns, and I don't recruit, so it doesn't really work exactly like that. I accompany women who are praying and discerning about being a daughter of charity. And actually not just those folks. Anybody who comes by, who passes by my path, I work with them and help to discern with them about how God is calling them to live their life. I get to work with people like Teresa here, who's one of our group postulants, who hung out here in Juneau, right? For, how long were you here? 7.5 years, but from the great town of Valdez, right? Now, I'm from California, so there's only one association I have with Valdez.
The oil spill.
The oil spill, right? I mean, I was a kid watching on the news, this oil spill. So when I met somebody from there, I was like, yes. Now I have a much better thing to replace that memory with, and that's Teresa. So I was happy to be invited to come here to hang out with you all, to talk to you. Come on in, welcome. To talk to you about the joy of saying yes. This is kind of my job. I get to talk to people and help them say yes to the things God's calling them to do. You notice I don't need a microphone. Well, in a small room like this, I don't think any of us would, but I taught middle school in the inner city of Los Angeles for many years. I have a teacher voice, I like to say. And I use it freely with lots of joy, usually. When I think about saying yes, and I think most of us could consider this, when we think about saying yes, there are a couple things that are needed in order to say yes or no freely. You can add this to the no side too. And freedom is where I like to begin with that conversation. Freedom is just a necessary component of a free yes, right? When I'm working with women who are in discernment, the first thing we establish is freedom, right? We can't discern if we're not free to discern. And I know that sounds crazy, like we just want people, right? So we're just going to take people, we're just going to rush them in the door. No, we've got to establish freedom. It's so important. Are we free to discern? Are we free to say yes or no? Is this the right time in our life? Is God calling you to this place or to that place, to this vocation or that vocation? And if we're not free to discern, then it's not time to make a decision. So freedom is really important. And when I think about us here, particularly in the United States, I think about the kinds of things, the kinds of freedoms that we value the most. Some of them are the kinds that show up in our Constitution, right? And some of them are not. Some of them are more related to like shopping. The fact that we just go shopping and buy the things I want to buy, or the fact that we could go off to college and say bye-bye to parents for a while. Like freedom, right? So I just mention, I have a few, like the freedom of religion, it's in our Constitution. This is just some symbols of some religions, like the 5 most common religions in the world. But there are many, 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 many more. It's a freedom that's written into our Constitution. It doesn't mean it's a freedom that everybody really gets to practice freely, right? We don't all really get to do that freely. But it is one that is supposed to be a right that we have, and we actually treasure it. Treasure it a lot. This is one of my imaginations of somebody going off to school for the first time, or moving out of home. Yeah, out of here. My parents can't tell me what to do. I often think about that, like when I'm giving vocation talks. Like, how many of you can't wait to grow up to take the vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity? Yes! I just prepared my whole life for this moment. Who can't wait for that? Oh my goodness. Who's just knocking down the door? I don't know. Freedom of speech or expression, right? And that really, we know that one is wrapped up with a lot of other freedoms, I guess. But we do know that the freedom of speech isn't the freedom to say whatever you want. Or you get sued, you say the wrong thing. Or you lie about somebody, right? It's not freedom to just be irresponsible. But we do have a freedom in expressing ourselves in this country that you can't do in other countries. Cannot. Right? And these freedoms are so important that we have people that are willing to die and fight for them. Come on in. Willing to die and fight for them. Right? They're called soldiers. They put their lives on the line to protect freedoms for us. Welcome, welcome. And we're so grateful for that. We're so grateful. And many of us even, we feel like if we were put in a position, we would kind of offer that same courage. I say it because I hope so. Yesterday when we did that exercise for you, the one I pointed out was courage. It's the one that I struggle with the most. Struggle with courage. But the flip side is, we have all these great freedoms, but we also have the freedom to do some pretty ugly stuff like hate. This is an image of some actually children protesting that belong to that Westboro Baptist Church. I think they show up in your town probably more often than over on the East Coast. And they often protest like when soldiers come back who have been murdered, who died in war, and they're coming back at their burial services. They'll protest ugly things like this. It's a freedom that we have. How are we using our freedom? And we have this freedom. Now, the last group kind of made fun of me about this. Remember, I was a teacher, right? So it has things like pinching, right? I mean, this is all in context. The freedom to sin. It's a freedom. So the continuum of freedom, along with that comes the power of yes and no. It's on this continuum. One thing I often say, and I'll say something a little bit, well, I'll save it before I get to it. But it has a bunch of different words that describe just kid sins, right? Mostly kid sins. Freedom plus me equals joy. Now, it probably doesn't feel like that after I did that intro. I'm so excited about freedom now. I came to listen to this joy of saying yes, and Sister Lisa's making me feel like a real downer now. That's a girl who goes off to college and does her own laundry for the first time. She put herself in the dryer instead of her clothes. How do I get out? Let me out. Now I was going to say most kids probably wouldn't do that, but I don't really know. I just don't know. This is meant to help us see that sometimes freedom doesn't equal what we think it's going to equal. Right? We think we have an imagination about it. Oh, it's going to mean all these things. And then we wake up one day in our dorm room, or our new home with our new spouse, or whatever it is, the new town with our new big job, and the laundry is just sitting there. We're not sure how that happened, but it's got to be dealt with. And I'm not exactly sure how my mom did it for all those years. And this is the flip side. This is at the other end of that continuum, right? The time continuum. I was sharing this with the group before. I remember leaving home and thinking, feeling like $1 million. I did not have $1 million, I can promise you. I went to college, I became a Catholic school teacher. I never had more than what was going to cover my bills for that month, if that I was lucky. But I remember when my mother died. My mom died a young woman. She died at about the age of 58 from cancer. But I remember, being with her and just sensing like the significance of that loss and the holiness of that moment, because I was able to be right there. And then like that moment of leaving home and feeling like hearing the Rocky music, da-da-da, like being at the top of the stairs there at the museum, and feeling, and then this moment, like the loss, and all of that's part of that embrace of freedom. But it's so significant. And I remember, this is true, somewhere in between, right? In between this continuum was Thanksgiving, about my 4th year in community. Teresa lives with our sisters in Tuba City, and I asked her to confirm and affirm this statement, but we're like you all. I just want to say, like, when you go to one of our houses, like, we possess space, just like you do. Like, so-and-so has this chair, that's so-and-so's special cereal bowl or coffee mug, and even though it doesn't have their name, it happens. And you might just move in and you don't know that's Sister Susie's special space until you sit in Sister Susie's special space and go, wow, Sister Susie's special space, right? You find out maybe the not-so-fun way. Well, when I first got to community, there was Sister Susie's special job to make the turkey. Cooking is my most favorite hobby. Eating is the second most favorite. But cooking is my favorite hobby. And I moved into a local community where they didn't have anybody who had cooking as their favorite hobby. So I was invited to cook the turkey for Thanksgiving, and I was so happy. But I never cooked a turkey before. I mean, I looked it up. We already had internet. I've been around that long, but we had the internet. I looked it up, and I knew what I wanted to do, but I was kind of scared. I'm sure I called my mother 8 times in a 2-hour span. I was like, but now it looks like this. And my mom finally, in about the 6th or 7th, she said, stop calling. Stop it. I said, well, it looks dark. Is it dark? She said, well, put the thermometer. Is it okay? Like, you can't take it out until it's cooked. But I could not stop calling her. She's the only person I could imagine to phone to help me cook the turkey. It was somewhere in that continuum. I mean, I was so happy to be free to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. So happy to do that. I needed my mom because I didn't know how to cook a turkey. It was I can't tell you how I treasure that moment today. I treasured calling my mom 8 times on Thanksgiving. And my mom's like, if I'm not going to be able to cook my turkey, you stop calling me. I've got things to do. Stop it. I cannot possibly be the only person who knows how to cook a turkey on this planet. Stop calling me. It wasn't as important to her at that moment. It had worn off. Somewhere in that continuum. It's all part of the freedom. Kind of began in this place, right? They had all this freedom. Our friends Adam and Eve, besties. And in their freedom to have all this space, right? It's kind of reminds me of our local communities. All this space is yours except for this one little space over here. And they couldn't help but to engage in that space. They couldn't help but to go to that one tree they weren't supposed to go to. They couldn't help it. They sinned. And then Adam was like, oh, she made me do it. Kind of a wimpy guy. Let's blame her. But that's how it enters in, right? But that's part of the freedom. And in that moment, God says, I love you. Everything I have is still yours. And you have the freedom to choose yes or no. You have the freedom to choose yes or no. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to reveal myself, but you need to invite that revelation. You need to invite that revelation. And because of that, we have this freedom to sin. And when we do that, we kind of turn our back, and we can build a separation between us and God. And you can imagine in these moments that when we're walking away, that we are not free, right? We actually come to a point where we're no longer free. We can be actually possessed by, and I'm not going to that far place, so I'm not suggesting possession by like a demonic possession, but we can be so possessed by things, power, pride, whatever you want to call it, that we're not free anymore. And so whatever decisions we make, they're not based in freedom anymore. So no more yes and no's out of freedom. They just don't exist. And I love this image. I don't love it because it makes me feel warm and fuzzy, but this image of walking away to kind of nothing. Because most of us have felt like that before. Where our decision has taken us to nowhere, to no place, to nobody. Right? The next image doesn't look so fun, but what I'm introducing is the fact that we can also find freedom, not true freedom, right? But we can have the illusion of freedom to harm, right? Because sometimes we feel like we're always looking for how do bad things happen, how to explain evil in the world, and we're not going to get into all of that. But it is somehow, in a very difficult way, it's all wrapped up in this notion of freedom. Freedom and sin and all that kind of stuff. And so we even have the freedom to harm. We do. Okay, don't worry, the depressing stuff is going to end, I promise. But freedom, even though it's free, and we can choose light over dark, or dark over light, it was given to us for good and for joy. It was. It is. And that's my favorite road sign. I love it. And I hate it when the road sign says, no U-turn. I just think it's not fair. Like, don't bother. I just can't stand that. I just think that, don't break my heart like that. Don't bother putting a road sign up at all. God allows U-turns. And remember, U-turn is not this 360-degree turn. Like, that's just ending up in the same place. Right? Earlier I said, I would do that for you, but I could fall down. I'm going to just do this one, right? It's 180 degrees, and you start facing God again. God allows U-turns. We know this. This is at the heart of our faith, that we get to turn around, we get to face God again. And that the crazy thing is that God's standing right there like he was never someplace else. Always right there. God allows U-turns. How many of you have been here before? Yeah, like you just, either a person is on the other side, a situation is on the other side, the next place that something you really need to get to is on the other side. It's just too far. You just think you cannot reach it. It's too far. Too far away. Healing is on the other side. Too far away. Too hard. It's not possible. I think sometimes I've not been a parent. And I'm sure that was just God's mercy on some wonderful children, I don't know. I just, when I say that with I say that carefully because I know that that's a pain some people suffer, but I just, I taught middle school for many years. And, I've been with many parents as they really suffered communicating with their teenage children, and just the chasm seemed so big. It was so hard. Just so hard. But I love this. God turns toward the very places from which humans turn away. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the Lutheran theologian. And he wrote a great book called The Cost of Discipleship. I'm a convert. It was the very first Jesus book I ever read. Because it was for a quarter at the thrift store. I bought it. I was like, wow. I didn't know there was different Catholic books, and I didn't know any of that stuff. So it was a great book. God turns to the very places that we turn away from because we can't bear to look. God's looking right at it. He's not afraid. He stares it down. And this is what God does to that chasm. If we ask. Now, the truth is, it's always there. The truth is, it's always there. But when we ask, it somehow gets revealed. Right? Because God's like, He's respecting our freedom. He respects it. So then we say, can you reveal yourself now? I'm kind of tired of the show. And then we see the grace bridge. And we're like, oh, I should have asked before. Should have asked before. I'm a daughter of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul. And at our mother house in 1830, Our Lady appeared to St. Catherine Lambre and gave us the miraculous medal. And one of the things, I didn't say this in the last talk, was when those rays were coming out of Our Lady's hands, and the light wasn't coming out of all of her fingers, right? Actually, the rings on her fingers. We won't get too much into that. But some of those rings didn't have any light coming out. And St. Catherine asked Mary, well, how come there isn't light coming out of all of those? Because Mary told her that those rays represented the grace from Jesus that he was, sending down to folks. She said, well, how come not every one of those rings has a ray then? And Mary said, that's because those are the graces nobody asks for. They're there just waiting to be asked. Because God respects our freedom. Waiting for us to participate in this life of prayer. We're not just being slammed with it. Participate. Intercede on our own behalf, too. We're not just passive. God's just not up there with a little mouse, moving things around. Be a participant in your faith life. Ask for that grace bridge to be revealed. He shows up. Because we know this is already true. Right? Nothing's impossible for God. Are you ready? This is what happens. This is exactly what happens. I love this image and I hate it. I just hate it. I love it and I hate it. When it's time for us to ask God, when God reveals it to us, and when we're getting ready to say big yeses in our life, and we're going to just talk about that right after this, there comes these moments of great faith, right? We've all had them, I know. Where we have to just let go and trust that God's going to catch us. And Henry Nouwen wrote a great little reflection about this kind of an image. I don't remember which book. She might remember, you can ask her, but I remember which one it was. But about the trapeze artist and this nice relationship. And how you just kind of, it's almost like darkness, where you just kind of let go and you trust that you're going to get caught. You're going to get caught. Now these folks practice a lot, right? And if somebody doesn't do something just right, they don't get caught. But see, God always, he's like the perfect trapeze catcher. He's going to always catch you, no matter what. No matter what. And I often think about how that's the whole summation of our faith. Like that moment where you're just kind of in the air. You're excited. I also often describe it as when I don't know if you remember this, if this happened to you too, but I would be running around the house. My dad would be hiding behind a corner, and I knew he was there. And I could feel the energy building up. I knew he was going to jump out and scare me. And I wanted him to, and I knew I was going to scream. And I was like, and I come around the corner, and then I screamed still, and I was scared and excited at the same time. The exact same time, those two sounds erupted at the exact same moment. All in one, whoa! And I'm sure, if I had a heart monitor back then, it's kind of like that moment for me right there. Scared, excited, all at the same time. I love this image. This is kind of what it takes to say those real yeses. It's kind of like, yeah. Before we go, I want to just give you guys 1 minute to just talk to each other about a time when went too far. Sorry. when you thought you were here, right? When you thought you were there, and this happened for you. And this happened for you. You thought you were there and this happened for you. Just this, that grace bridge has kind of appeared. So I'll take like 10 seconds of just quiet to kind of let that memory come back to us. Okay, and if we could just share maybe with just the folks around us, just a quick snippet of that time. When you thought you were at a place, and then that grace bridge just kind of revealed itself, and you were able to kind of fix a situation, or you saw how a situation or a relationship could be repaired. Ready, set, go. I hope we were able to imagine and remember moments when we just felt like it was too far away, and before we knew it, it was right there. Now we're going to move just to a little bit stage. We're going to get closer to this notion of yes. How many of you believe, you don't have to raise your hand, but you can, believe that practice makes perfect? Yeah, and you might have already been given a heads up about this, but anyway.
Practice makes more practice.
So I'm going to practice something for you. I'm an old school teacher, like I taught diagramming and stuff like that. I mean, I really am. I just think there's some things about education that, I also taught blended learning. I mean, I some way of bringing these worlds together. But I'm going to practice something for you. This is an old school term, right? Practice makes perfect. And we good old teachers drill and drill and drill. And so I'm going to practice something for you. And this is how my practice goes usually. It goes like something like 2 + 2 is 5, 2 + 2 is 5, 2 + 2 is 5, 2 + 2 is 5. And that's a lot of practicing for one problem. I love this moment. What's wrong with that?
You practice also.
It's wrong. Yeah. It's wrong. It's not correct. I think I'm not a... You can go home every night and you can practice your times tables, which is what we do in 3rd grade, right? Practice them all you want, but if you do not practice them correctly, you will not get better. I do not care. You could go every day to basketball practice. I played basketball a lot before I played a little bit in college. And as long as all you ever do is kick the ball, you will never get better. It's not possible. Impossible. Right? I don't care how much you practice it. See, I do not believe that practice makes perfect. I think it's a myth. I think it's just a myth. I do 100% believe that perfect practice makes perfect. 100% I believe that. I think if you want to get better at addition, you have to say that 2 + 2 is 4. You have to say it over and over again in your head, to do your times tables appropriately, and if you go to basketball practice, you got to pick up the ball and hit the dribble, but no kicking. It just doesn't work that way. Perfect practice makes perfect. And we know that works in certain realms. We don't always know it works in how we live like our lives. Our morality, it actually has to be practiced. Communication skills have to be practiced, right? When you hear little kids say please and thank you, that's practicing. It's not just teaching, it's practicing, right? It's good practice. It's not bad news, it's good news. But I have some examples of imperfect practice of yeses. And now when I do this with little kids, they're shameless, right? Now they're just like, yeah, me, yeah, I got that, yeah, no. You don't have to raise your hand for this, but I'm going to just give you an example of some of my yeses. When I was younger, I don't say these yeses anymore. I say other ones that are probably worse because I know better now, but anyway. This is a great example of a yes that I used to say to my mom. God bless her, it's worse now because she's in heaven, and I think, oh, she can really hear me saying these things now, you know. And when she was on the earth, she did hear me talk about her like this. But anyway, when I was growing up, I grew up mostly in the 80s. My mom, we had this thing about having school clothes and play clothes, right? School clothes and play clothes. And my mom said I had to change my clothes when I got home from school if I was going to play. And so I would do that, but only after leaving a whole trail of evidence that I had come home. So like I'd kick my shoes off at the front door, the sweater would be lost somewhere. I mean, there was just a whole trail of clothing between the front door and my bedroom. A whole trail. And I didn't, you know, and then I'd come out my play clothes and my mom would be like, girlfriend, those clothes belong in the laundry basket. You can get them in. Now, I often tell children this too. Your parents don't have to be all sweet to you when they tell you to do stuff. Like this notion that they have to be like, oh, Lisa, would you please put your clothes in the laundry basket? No! Your parents can boss you around. They can say, you get your clothes in the laundry basket. Like my mom did that. She said, get your clothes in the laundry basket. Let's go. And I'd be like, that's not just teenagers today. I did that. I'm not sure what language that is. Yeah, it's called, kid language. So, and I picked them up and I would slam dunk them, right? Fine, I'll do it, you'll see me. I mean, drama. Like a whole 10 minutes to do about a 30-second task. 10 minutes, waste of time that I wasn't playing because I was busy being dramatic to my mother about putting those clothes in the basket. I mean, the huffing and the puffing. Anybody have memories like that? Don't out yourself, but have you ever seen anybody do this? Yes, okay. That was one of my yeses. Very good at that yes. I was excellent at that yes. I did it. I, in one sense, I was obedient. I did what my mom asked. It's a yes. The other one that I was often pretty proud of. I have a younger sister who I just want to say to today, she has 4 children, she's a beautiful mother. But she was just a little princess, little rotten baby girl, okay? She just didn't have to do anything ever, and I felt that way. And my mom would be like, could you just put the dishes away? Put the dishes away, Lisa. And my sister was like 3, right? I'm like, you never make her do anything. It's not fair. Drama. And I would make sure that my mama heard every piece of silverware go into the silverware tray. Clink, 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 clink. Dish, clink, clink, dish. Not fair. I do everything. You never make my brother do anything. My brother lived at school. My brother was born deaf, and he lived at the California School for the Deaf. He was not home. But I didn't care. My mother worked more than one job. She worked her fanny off, but I didn't care. That was my other really famous yes. Everybody paid for that one. And I could tell by the laughter that some of you are familiar with that yes. Whether you were responsible for it or you know of other people who were responsible for that yes. You know that yes. I did it. I obeyed. I did what my mom asked. No problem. Sure, Mom. No problem. Now, just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I don't give those kinds of yeses today. They're just a little different. Now, that's me with my 2 nieces. They came to visit this summer. They flew as unaccompanied minors from St. Louis. And that little one, she looks like a little angel right there. This is me flying back with them, right? She looks like a little angel while my sister sent them with a bunch of snacks, which they thought were all for the plane ride. Oh, it was for the whole week. But when they're little, they have no inhibition meter, right? They get off the plane, I'm like, oh, it's so great to see you. Put them in the car. I mean, it wasn't 2 blocks from the airport. The little one was throwing up all over the car. Praise the Lord, we had a postulant in the car with me because I had to change this little girl in a parking lot, right? And we had a luggage with us, thank God. And all I could think of was at this moment in the church, the last thing this nun needs to be doing is changing this girl in a parking lot. Like, I just, niece, she's my niece, she threw up, and this is all that's happening. My niece, oh my Lord, what's happening right now? It was a moment. And all I could think was, what happened? What happened? I'm so sick, I'm so sick. And then I pulled out this snack bag, and I was like, yeah, and I could see. I'm like, oh, the evidence shows, looks like Jolly Ranchers to me. What's happening here? The whole thing? Yeah, I know what happened. I love these girls. They're my sister's daughters, and 2 of her 4 kids. Wonderful. We had a great time, except for that little moment where I thought, I'm going to go to jail. Sure. But this is the worst yes. Right? This is one that says, sure, Mom, I'll do my homework. But instead I'll go play video games, right? My mom, this is probably the biggest mistake that my mom made, was that she allowed us to have like a little game thing in our bedroom. And I, to this day, would say, as a middle school teacher especially, it was like, no, I don't generally tell people how to parent their children, but I would say, please do not. Awful thing to do. And that is a lie. What I do is lie to my parents. Like my mom, no problem. I remember a kid telling me, no, I fibbed to my mom. Honey, a fib is a lie. Capital L-I-E, lie. Fib is lie. It just makes you feel better. It doesn't hurt your mouth so much to say it, but it's a lie. Fibs are lies. Let's have a little, we'll have morality next week, but it's still a lie. You didn't tell the truth. That yes. Don't tell the truth, right? It's not even yes. It's deceiving. And I promised Tracy here that she was not going to get off the hook. There she is with 2 of our postulants, lucky girl. That she's going to have to tell you a story about one of her bad yeses. Like right this second. Come on up here. We can play the Price is Right music for her. I'm going to sit down for a second while you do that.
I had a bad yes a couple of months ago. I was working with an organization and their treasurer unexpectedly quit. And they asked me if I could fill in for 6 months until they figured out who their next treasurer would be. And I said, sure. And the only catch was there's this special training I had to go to. So I say, okay, I'll do the training. After the fact, I found out the closest training is a 4-hour drive away. And they decided not to have the training on one weekend, but 2. So now I'm driving 16 hours between the 2 round trips. I'm giving up 2 weekends, and I'm very not excited about the training. So yes, I went to the training, but for both of them, I kind of sat in the back of the classroom, and I just looked very grumpy about being there.
Now, most of us have memories like that, right? Where we kind of sat in the back. I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to make friends. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm going to be grumpy. A lot of grumpy grown-ups in the world, right? Take a moment right now. Remember a time when you said maybe not such a great yes. Doesn't have to be exactly like one of these yeses. It could be another yes that either where somebody paid for your yes, right? Somebody else kind of bared the burden of your yes. Just think about that for a minute. And then without sharing anything you're uncomfortable with sharing, if you could share with the neighbor for just about, we just have about a minute and a half to do that sharing with your neighbor about either how that yes felt or something that you feel comfortable sharing about that yes. Ready, set, go. Just imagine. I love this image. This guy's proposing. Now, some of us have been on the other end where we're like the one not listening or where we haven't been heard. And she says yes, but this is how she says yes. Sure, honey. And he's like, honey. Sure. Or this yes. I don't have to, no words necessary, right? Or what if this was Mary's response? When the angel Gabriel came, right, today's his feast day, we could tease him a little bit. What if she said, I don't think so, I'm kind of busy on that day. I won't be having anything to do with this incarnation business. No. Won't be getting pregnant nor giving birth to Jesus. No, I don't think so. I love the way she has her hand there. She's like, no. In fact, it even looks like she has a little calendar down there. No. I don't think so. Imagine if big yeses, if big questions happen this way. This is how some yeses or some no's went down. Because we never practiced them. We have to practice saying good yeses. If we didn't know how to say them, this is very well how we could end up saying them. With our heads in our phones. Or, I don't think so. Or when somebody proposes and you're like, okay, sure. Because that's how we respond. Because that's the only way we've ever been expected to respond. Or it's not fair. You never asked my sister. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh my gosh. Please go ask my sister, yeah. I think this is why sometimes we're not very good at saying yes, and why we don't like to perfectly practice saying yes. Because we know, this goes with the decision-making side of yes. Right? We have this yeses that are responses to requests, right? Like do the dishes, put them away. And then we have the other side of yes that has to do with choices, discernment, decision-making. Now, most of us know, I don't know, you know how, I'm used to I'm originally from the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, right? This is a very big place. And in that place, you could run into grumpy sisters and grumpy priests, right? Not a nice thing to run into. And you want to say that there were other options? You didn't have to choose that. You didn't. Right? You didn't have to choose. But one of the problems with yes and no's and choosing yes and people making commitments is that when you walk through one door, all those other doors you don't get to walk through. Saying yes means saying no to everything else. Saying yes to this person to marry means saying no to everybody else. Saying yes to one path means saying no to all the other paths. Once in a while, something can change, but in general, that's not the case. Saying yes to one vocation is saying no to all the other vocations. There's very rare instances where that doesn't happen. But in general, that's what that means. So guess what? We just rather not say yes or no. We just don't.
Maybe, and that's fine.
If that's what God is calling you to. If that's what God, but I often tell people, I know many people that have been in discernment for a bazillion years, and I think discernment can be an excuse for never making a decision. Oh, I've been discerning. Oh, really? Oh, that's nice. I will not be putting you on my contact list because you're not serious. It can be a great excuse for never making a decision. Oh no, too bad. Because we love buffets, and I don't mean like hometown buffet. Maybe you don't have that. But I don't mean the food kind. I mean the options. I don't want to give up my options. Never. I want always to have them all open to me all the time. I commit to one person, then I just don't have all these other people available to me in the same way anymore. That's tough stuff. And I think that's where we get into trouble. When people tell me, young people don't like commitment. Oh, I think they like commitment. They don't like commitment to one thing. It's just one thing. I find them very committed. Very committed to the things and the causes that they care very much about. It's just when we start narrowing to that laser beam focus, what about my options? What about my freedom? What about the buffet? Because this is what we prepared people for. But we do have a model, and she didn't say, I don't think so. What she really said was, let it be done. That is what she really said. She really looked at her date book and said, no, I'm good. Let it be done unto me according to your word. We do have a model for saying yes. Because when you think about what Mary did, and you've heard this a million times, when you think about a young woman saying yes to something that is impossible, because that's how the story ends. That's how that little snippet of scripture ends, right? With God, all things are possible. Right? It's not. You're right. This isn't possible because she said, I don't know men like that. And the angel says, well, yeah, we know. We got that covered. Don't worry. The power of the Holy Spirit's got it taken care of. And because with God, all things are possible. Because God can do what God was like doing. That's how it works. Let it be done to me, she says. That's her yes. That's like a supersized yes. So she's a teenager, and she obviously must have practiced saying a lot of yeses before she got to this one. She didn't say, okay, fine. Or, could you ask my sister? Well, that's not a fair question. I don't think so. Think of all the ways I say yes. Think of all the ways you say yes. That wasn't her response. She said, let it be done. Now, I don't think she didn't go out for a Mardi Gras parade after this. I think it says she pondered. I think she understood the depth, the seriousness. But then she goes to see Elizabeth, and there's a song. Amazing. Amazing. That's her yes. We have a model for saying yes. A big yes in a very joyful, beautiful way. And I just want to end by saying the joy of saying yes is for today. It's not for tomorrow. Yes, please, tomorrow also. But just think that when you wake up tomorrow, the joy of saying yes is for today too. And the day after that, and the day after that. Most of us know a grumpy grown-up. Now, let me preface this a little bit. I am no stranger, and I in no way mean to diminish the reality of suffering, sickness, the reality of abuse, or any of those things. They're very real, and they are not joyful things. But kind of like what Bishop Andrew said last night about the Jesus, that presence being the joy down deep in our hearts, right? In the midst of these things, we have the presence of Christ that is still life. It is still life. The light in darkness. That's still what it is. And it's still good news. It's good news in the midst of very bad news. Right? All that freedom that we talked about at the beginning, right? That stuff that can enter into us, it's real and it's painful and it's stuff that we were going to have to hold in a very, very, very painful. And many of us hold it in different ways, and families, all different kinds of ways. Loss is very real. So this isn't to gloss over any of that. But you know the difference of when you're in the presence of somebody who holds it in a way that just brings everything down, themselves and everybody around them. Because when we hear that misery loves company, well, darkness really loves company. And the evil one really loves company. And when you've been ministered to by light and joy. You know when you've been ministered to by that. You know the difference. You know when you've been in a really place of suffering, and that person who brings light and joy to you, and you're like, wow. And your heart may be completely broken. I can think of the people who ministered to us through hospice when my mother was dying, and how different I felt between those different folks that would walk through that door. And I think I want to minister like that person right there. Light and joy just walked in the midst of my complete loss. Light and joy just walked in. That's the difference. It doesn't diminish the loss. It doesn't diminish the darkness at all. But it is light and joy in the midst of something really, really awful. God would not have put a dream in your heart if He had not already given you everything you need. We already have everything. We've been baptized. We've received Jesus in the Eucharist, reconciliation, and we've been confirmed. We have it all already. It's all already there for us. We have everything we need to be that for other people. We already have it. It's just whether or not we're going to cross that, the grace bridge, or not. Or we're going to look at it and just see the chasm. I'm going to cross it and yay, yes. Or we're going to just be like, ask my sister. Not fair. It's not fair. But let's cross that grace bridge. And I would think that a lot of us love this, right? I know the plans I have for you. Isn't that consoling? Plans for a future, plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. I love that. And I love that God says, I know the plans I have for you. Silly one. Don't be telling me you don't like what's going on. I know what I've done. And I love this quote from the Pope that says, one of the more serious temptations which stifles boldness and zeal, this is from the Gospel of Joy, the Joy of the Gospel, which stifles boldness and zeal is a defeatism. You know what walks in the room. Which turns us into pluralists, arguing and disillusioned pessimists and sourpusses. Now, usually this is when I'll tell kids to make that face. Oh, you just know when the energy just is drained. And drained. This is the last thing for you all. First of all, you can do it. Do not be afraid of what God asks of you. It is worth saying yes to God, and in Him we find joy. It's worth saying yes. That it is a joyful thing. Is every day full of joy? No, because sometimes you sit in Sister Susie's chair and it gets a little crazy. Or you guys can fill that in with any story you have. Sometimes there's a really painful situation, there's separation. There's so many things that cause us pain. But you can be light and joy. You can be yes in a world of no's. You can do that. We can do that. We can choose to do it. It's part of that freedom. It's a choice. It's a calling and it's a choice. And I think we all have good reasons to not be that. Everybody does. And we can all totally empathize when somebody doesn't. But I know that every one of us can think of times when somebody was that for us, and we just think, oh, that just meant so much to me. And we don't realize that person made a choice to be that. They responded to grace. And I think God's inviting all of us to do that. Questions? Comments? No tomatoes, please.